We hope that you have enjoyed your dinner and your dessert. We want to thank those who have made and served our dinner for their wonderful service this evening here at the Louisville Downtown Marriott. And with your help, I think we'll resume our program. I want to show you a little bit about the history of this distinguished rural Kentuckian honor. I'm going to pull up a slide here that kind of shows you the progression of the winners over the years. It began back in 1982. If we can pull that up here from the back, guys, that'd be great if we could show that slide of there they go. So this goes back to 82. The highest honor bestowed by the Kentucky Electric Cooperatives is the Distinguished Rural Kentuckian Award, honoring individuals who have helped enhance the image or quality of life in rural Kentucky. You see their names here. Also on the back of your program, there also is a list of all the winners over the years. You'll see from our illustrious past honorees from the arts, politics, journalism, business, education, religion, athletics, and agriculture. You can see some of our great winners, of course, including several of whom are here this evening. I'll ask you now to please turn your attention to our video screens for our 2024 honoree.
I believe that rural America can and will hold true to the best traditions of our national life, and that I can exert an influence in my home and community, which will stand solid for my part in that inspiring task.
It's a career defined by the people he has influenced, encouraged, and connected. The institution he shaped and cultivated. And his passion for agriculture.
Born in Murray, Kentucky, raised right here on the home farm. Cut my teeth on the steering wheel of a Model B Allis-Chalmers, so they say.
The same family farm where his parents, Harold and Dorothy, taught life lessons to brothers Tony and Tim, Brannon still calls home today.
The way my brother and I vowed that we would keep the family farm going. So it's kind of the nucleus of our family is the farm. Had it not been for dark tobacco, I don't know that we'd have had food on our table. Very meager means, but every January when that check came in, they stretched it somehow all year long. And matter of fact, tobacco money paid for every bit of my education all the way through the doctorate.
As a state FFA officer in high school,
I love the FFA.
Brannon excelled in multiple events, encouraged by an influential advisor.
He saw the potential, and he kept on me, and he kept pushing me.
Onward to Murray State University in 1977.
His rural roots and farm they were very special to him.
That's where he met classmate and lifelong friend Bob Hargrove.
You could just tell from early on that he was going to be a leader.
Brannon completed his bachelor's degree in agricultural education in 1981. 1 year later, his master's, and then back to the classroom for the first time as a teacher.
And I taught high school agriculture for 4 years, then packed everything in the back of my dad's truck and headed to Oklahoma State, become a cowboy for 2 years.
In 1988, now Dr. Brannon returned to Murray State as an assistant professor.
Said it was half-time ag education, half-time ag mechanization, half-time recruiting. They wanted me to recruit, but it was also half-time pay.
With apparently just enough time left to court recent Murray accounting graduate Lisa Wilson.
I had known of him all my life, and we had family connections, and so my grandmother was always saying, "You need to write him." And of course I didn't, but then after he came back is when we started dating, and the rest is history.
A year later, Tony and Lisa were married.
I had to fool her. She always said she didn't want to marry a farmer, but I said, well, I'm a doctor of pharmacology, and that seemed to work.
His sense of humor and boundless energy also a difference maker in his classes.
Said before you go in the classroom, you get outside and you crank that motor.
You didn't realize you was learning in his class, but you were. He made it fun.
Bob Wilson was Brannon's student in the early 1990s.
Because he was so inspirational, so conversational,
His lectures liberally sprinkled with Brannonisms.
Strive to have a good say-do ratio. Plan your work. Work your plan. I'm not too awful smart, but I'm pretty quick to catch on.
I couldn't wait every day to go see Dr. Brannon and to be a part of his class.
Perfect practice makes perfect. Not just practice makes perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect.
His passion, his excitement, his enthusiasm is just contagious.
Success only becomes in front of work in the dictionary. Be sure that you get an education instead of just a degree.
When you come to Murray State and student, get an education, don't just get a degree.
When you left Murray, you didn't just get a diploma, you got an education.
His mantra is come to Murray State to get an education, not a degree.
That education included advising student clubs and alumni agricultural chapters.
Great turnout, great turnout.
Co-authoring articles on ag education, developing cooperative ventures with manufacturers, and coordinating student recruitment curriculum.
And Tony Brannon, his middle name ought to be Recruit, because it doesn't matter where he's at, he's recruiting all the time.
Everywhere he went, spreading the word about Murray State's growing agriculture program.
Well, sometimes it's not only about what's going on, it's kind of about the spin. We had 56 freshmen one year. One of the first years I worked with freshman orientation, and we went to 61 the next years, and the headlines went out, Murray State enrollment, freshman enrollment up 10%. So it's a matter of how you couch it, you know.
Well, when I was in the Department of Ag at Murray State in 1990, 1991, it was 250 students. And today we're sitting here at in the School of Agriculture. No longer a department, it's grown so much. 1,450 students. And that's by no accident. That's Dr. Tony Brannon.
I had a great mentor, Elton Heathcott, who was my mentor, who was that way. He never met a stranger. He knew everybody's name. He introduced me to far more people than I could ever remember. But I tried to emulate some of that as well. Plus, I just had a lot of people that really put their faith and trust in me.
When Eldon Heathcott retired in 1996, the university named Brannon interim department chair. 1 year later, that promotion became official, and in 2000, the Ag Department became the School of Agriculture, with Brannon its academic coordinator, and with his eye on the big picture.
Back in 2002, he wrote an ag development grant for $2 million for FFA. And that grant, probably nobody in the state thought it was even possible at the time, but he managed to get it done, and I don't know what strings he pulled to get it passed. But so that's money that's going to be impacting ag education and FFA all across the state forever.
Hello, I'm Tony Brannon, Dean of the School of Agriculture at Murray State University, and
In 2004, Brannon named the first dean of the School of Agriculture.
One of the special projects I felt like Tony and I worked on is trying to obtain more land for the university to allow for research opportunities for students, to allow more internships.
Working with trusted partners and generous donors, and with Murray State's agriculture program growing in both reputation and stature, Brannon led the expansion of the university's agriculture footprint, acquiring and developing multiple farm properties.
The Door and Arboretum, where we're at right now, that was one of his projects that he saw through. The Breathitt Veterinary Center, out on the Pullen Farm, the apiary out there. There's a lot of things that he's just been like the leader over those projects.
Most of them are used as university farms, and it just has to be the right conditions. It has to be cultivated.
For all of the infrastructure and institutional achievements, to the people who know Tony Brannon best, his greatest accomplishments are reflected in the lives of Murray State students and alumni.
The good thing about the program is you don't really get away, and a lot of that has to do with him.
3 years ago, 2011 graduate and veterinarian Sheila Phillips was expecting a baby and planning on taking some time off when her phone rang.
And then Dr. Brannon's like, hey, what are you doing? I was like, what do you need, Dr. Brannon? Because usually when he asks, you know there's something following that. And he's like, well, it's kind of just a God thing that you're a little more available and you got a little more free time. He's like, what? Meet me at Dairy Queen. So I met him at Dairy Queen, and I ended up being an adjunct professor that fall.
He uses the people in a very positive way where they can be the most effective. He's causing people to believe in themselves, and he demonstrates on a daily basis.
He's always, I can do this, or we can go here and get this. Very resourceful.
Was you got all the universities on board with a statewide articulation agreement for credit for ag students, and it was sort of impossible to get 5 institutions to agree to anything. And
I've been all over this state, and I turn around and sitting right there by me is Tony Brannon, and he had to come farther than anybody.
And here we've got our Futura fiber hemp.
There was an article about Dr. Brannon planting hemp for the first time since it became legal again. And I called from China. He said, "You're calling from China, but you're speaking English. What's your deal?" I said, "Well, I'm an American, and I'm making bamboo flooring over here, and I would like to make hempwood flooring." And he said, "That's what we've been looking for. When are you coming down to visit?" So when I came back to visit from China, within being here for 2 hours, he had already said, "You're going to create jobs in Western Kentucky doing ag tech with the Hudson School of Ag, and so let's make this work."
He wants best for what's particularly Murray State and this community, but he's now a proud grandpa, and he wants to make sure that we leave this world a better place than what we found it.
The big picture, priorities.
You know, school's important, work is important, but God first, family second. And so when he says things like, you know, it's kind of a God thing, like he means it.
Faith, as for me and my house will serve the Lord. Family, I'm so fortunate with my wife, Lisa, 2 wonderful children, both of whom were the state star farmer in Kentucky FFA.
God-fearing man that really wants the best out of everybody and will do anything that it takes in order to grow them personally, professionally.
I knew how he was as a parent and how much he cared for us, but he had that almost same level of care for each and every single one of his students.
He's a people person.
She made up for me when I wasn't here, and she put up with me when I was.
And always making an impression.
But the first time I remember him like vividly was when he came to our freshman orientation class and he did the On Beyond Zebra.
That playfulness leads to seriousness, leads to buying into what you're trying to get across.
He quotes the whole book of Dr. Seuss. And so that was my very, very first impression of him.
I took him past zebra as far as I could.
And it's my favorite book of Dr. Seuss because it talks about no longer is it good enough just to go through the 8 of the D's, that you got to go on beyond zebra.
Like On Beyond Zebra, he went past the zazz, teaching students to think, to squizzle and jazz. He grew Murray's Ag School a leader, a whiz, helping farmers and students find new zooks and ziz. With a Brannonism there and another one here, from the fields to the classrooms, he's the man of the year.
In recognition of a lifetime of service to improve the quality of life for rural Kentuckians, Kentucky Electric Cooperatives names Tony Brannon the 40th Distinguished Rural Kentuckian.
I'm sure there are many more deserving, but there's none more appreciative.
You know, it just makes my heart happy that others recognize him for all that he's done for agriculture in Kentucky. I mean, it means the world to us.
Congrats, Dr. Brannon. With a hop and a twirl, you've juggled it all in the agri-world whirl. From the farm to the stage, you've dazzled and shone. Now bask in the glory of seeds you have sown.
Lastly, I leave you with one of my favorite agriculture charges. Plant seeds of knowledge, fertilize with kindness and understanding, spray everything with a sense of humor, and you'll harvest a happy and successful life.
Well, how could you get any more deserving for this crowd, Dr. Brannon? We believe in that, faith, family, and a lot of farmers and hard work go into this, and we certainly are honored to present you. I know West Kentucky Rural Electric, Bob Hargrove, that whole group is so proud of you, and so it's with my great honor to recognize our 2024 Distinguished Rural Kentuckian Award to Dr. Tony Brannon.
Wow. Wow. I'm humbled, so humbled by this award. Someone once said the 3 hardest things in life was to, number 1, climb a fence that's leaning toward you. Number 2, kiss your wife when she's leaning away from you. And number 3, to acknowledge with humility an award like this. Despite failures, I've had a few success with the first 2, but I'll try with this 3rd one. From an old farm boy who grew up, as it was said, cutting their teeth on the steering wheel of a Model B Alice Chalmers tractor, to the work ethic that I obtained in a dark tobacco patch where I didn't feel very distinguished, through to this honor, all I got to say is this: dang, they ain't gonna believe this back home. Typically around the coffee shop, it said, well, you know what, Dr. Brannon, he's not too awful smart, but he is pretty quick to catch on. So all I've done, and I caught on early. I caught on early to serving Kentucky agriculture. And I've done so, and Matt Call, if this is for you, somewhat like a turtle on a fence post. I'm glad to be where I'm at, but I realize I didn't get there by myself. It's been about people, and you heard that mentioned several times. My granddad once told me, son, the only difference between you and you 5 years from now is the things that you see, hear, and read, and the people that you meet. And fortunately, looking back, I've been able to see, hear, and read a lot, but I've seen Kentucky agriculture up close and personal through its people. And I'm so fortunate that the people that I've met have stood me up. One of my favorite memory makers was on the top of the Empire State Building, where Graves County farmer Jabbo Howard was at the top of it, and it was about midnight. We had an ag leadership development program, and they come around the corner and they said, Dr. Brannon, you might need to check on Jabbo. Jabbo just passed away, rest in peace, great guy. But I said, why do I need to check on Jabbo? And they said, he's deathly afraid of heights. He won't even get up in the bottom floor of his tobacco barn. And here I've got him 1,250 feet in the air on top of the Empire State Building. I went around the corner and Jabbo was up against the inside wall like a statue. And I said, I better make conversation. I patted him. I said, Jabbo, what do you think about this? And he said, man, if I'd have built this, I'd have had to build it on the ground and then stood it up. Such has been the case with my career, whether as a student at Murray State, as a high school ag teacher through a doctoral program and returned back to Murray State as a teacher educator and then an administrator at the finest place we know, as well as being introduced to the Kentucky Ag Council by Billy Ray Smith and serving 3 times as chair, each time falling my lot to lead the strategic plan, including currently. And through over 25 years of service to the Kentucky FFA Foundation, where we obtained that grant that's still given back to Kentucky agriculture. Commissioner Billy Ray Smith wanted that to be the first grant to come out of that fund, and it did. And it's funded so much of rural Kentucky and rural America. All the way through to retirement, where I stated in front of that group, the bend in the road's not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. And I made the turn. Took me to a current part-time pay, full-time job down in the West Kentucky Alliance for a Vibrant Economy, WAVE Ag, in the 4 river counties, which, by the way, the 4 river counties is the top in sales, in ag sales in the state of Kentucky, the 1st Congressional District. So it's a lot of good agriculture there, where I serve as regional facilitator. All the way, it's been the people that have stood me up. Most important and personally, it's been my wife, Lisa. You've heard about her putting up with me, but if you look up selfless in the dictionary, you'll find her picture. She served our family. She served alongside me. My 2 sons, Caleb and Jonah, who are here tonight, both very talented academically from their mother, and maybe a few things from me. But Caleb is a lead trainer with Syngenta Digital in Murray, and Jonah is a lecturer and arboretum manager at Murray State. I'm so proud of them, their wives, Taylor and Katie could not be here, and grandson Ramsey, but I thank them for standing me up. And professionally, it's been people like Mr. David Beck, Mr. Warren Beeler, Mr. Matt Coliff, Commissioners Billy Ray Smith, James Comer, Ryan Quarles, Jonathan Shell, farmers, business, ag leaders like Bob Hargrove, Danny Kingins, Jamie Potts, Jed Clark, Professor Burchett, Bob Wilson, Philip Bean, and Greg Wilson with Hempwood that's here tonight that we got in Murray, one of the lone-standing businesses in hemp in the United States, and just voted the coolest thing made in Kentucky, took down Louisville Slugger bats. So yay for rural America, Greg. Thank you. Good job. Certainly all the current and past and faculty, staff, and administrators at Murray State, and last but most importantly, my Savior, my Lord, my God. I don't know what I've done to be so blessed, but I give him all the thanks and the glory. And lastly, as I reflect on my career, it's been a good run, and I cherish the memories with students, colleagues, and the ag industry. Looking back over 40 plus years, I've always tried to do the right thing the right way, and I've tried to keep my say-do ratio at 1 to 1. What you say, do what you say. Along the way, I've been tagged with some of these sayings that you heard, and Joe caught me off guard in our film. He said, we hear about Brannon, it was going to spout off some. I think he put in the only 3 that I could do at that time, but I thought, Joe, I'd redeem myself tonight. So here we go. I'm a fountain of useless knowledge and educated far beyond my intelligence. All I ever needed to know, I learned in a dark tobacco patch, and I got most of these illegal larceny from people that I got them from. Step up the stairs, don't stare up the steps. Be a go-getter. A blind hog will find an acorn every now and then. Keep your wheelbarrow turned over on that little wheel, and people will pile stuff in it. The main thing is keep the main thing the main thing. The only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. Success is a journey, not a destination. Reasonable people, equally informed, seldom disagree. I like that one. Plan your work, work your plan. Sometimes you can fall out of a well. Bob, you probably heard that from Dr. Heathcott. So don't worry about the mule, load the wagon. Probably told that to some students from time to time. Teaching is more than words going from an instructor's mouth to a student's paper without entering the mind of either. Ever make mistakes? Make it a stepping stone instead of a stumbling block. Look for memory makers. And lastly, my most well-known line, if you follow me on social media, when picking at or bragging on someone, including former assistant students or whomever, I tend to say, of all the students, or whatever I've ever known, you're one of them. I guess tonight the tables have been turned, because when you look at that distinguished list, Warren, tonight all I can say is of all the distinguished rural Kentuckians, I'm one of them. Finally, as one of them, thanks to the Kentucky Electric Co-op for historically recognizing the importance of rural agricultural leadership in our Commonwealth. Thanks to the WKRECC board, staff, members for nominating me and for standing me up in this platform and adding me to the long list. As I said before, certainly there are many more deserving, but none more appreciative. God bless. Thank you so much.